All right, I think I'll get started. So welcome. This is a monthly portfolio update for modern work and AI at Wavenet. It's a high-level overview of everything that we're doing within the portfolio. Please feel free to ask any questions in the Q&A section. We will spend some time at the end going through any questions that are there. We're also going to share information via email at the end on how you can get in touch, as well as giving copies of the presentation and the recording. So that will be available to anyone who registered for the event. My name's David Campbell. I am the product manager for AI and modern work at Wavenet. It's an area that's been incredibly exciting over the past couple of years, specifically with a mass availability and content improvement in generative AI. So while security has rightfully been the conversation for the past few decades, I think what I'm really excited about is being involved in a technology that's becoming transformative. So security is still going to be very much part of my portfolio, but really excited to be part of that transformative technology that we're doing some really exciting things with. So I'm a Microsoft certified AI transformation leader. I also write a weekly blog opinion piece on my LinkedIn. So if you'd like to follow me on that, you can click on that QR code. So today I'm going to be talking around major news events that happened over the past month. An incredible amount of content came out in the past month. It's very hard to keep up. This is my full-time job and I struggle with it. So yeah, hopefully this monthly session will give you kind of a summary of what has happened, and I'll give my opinion on some of those news items that have come out, and hopefully show how it can be applicable or relevant for our customer base in the UK. So starting off with Microsoft updates, this is probably a really small update, but Microsoft released this bundle of 3 applications that can be tagged to your little bar at the bottom of your window. And one's called a People app, a Files app, and a Calendar app. And essentially, they're just breakaways from Outlook. But I found myself using it quite a lot. And one of the main challenges I've been having is I get an email through and I want to check my calendar, and I've always got to choose either mail or calendar. Having this as a separate app, I find it quite useful. So it's a small thing, but something I've been using quite a lot over the last week, I must say. The other thing is I'm often in meetings with people, and because of sometimes the size of the company, I'm not sure who the person is. So I can use the People app to go and search for them, find out who they report to and what their role is while I'm in the call. So yeah, quite a nice little ad. Something that was quite interesting that happened in the past month was Microsoft decided to pull Copilot Chat, the free version of Copilot, in applications. They've only done it for customers over 2,000 seats, but it was a really interesting and unexpected move because it's only been 6 months since they've made it available as part of the application experience. It may be related to the launch of E7, which is available now, and I'll talk a bit more about E7. So, but what this sets up is the potential that this ability might be removed from the free version of Copilot across the different licenses. We don't know that that's the case yet, but we do know that with E7 coming out, we can expect an SMB version of E7 to come out. And I'm not sure what the upgrade on M365 Business Premium is, but look out for an M365 Business Super Duper coming out in the next few months, and that will likely include Copilot for everyone. And perhaps this is just the start of what they're planning on doing with the in-app experience. So this is coming next month, but we're going to have the ability to do submissions and the control of agent submissions with something called Agent Builder. And for me, this is quite important because generative AI was initially seen as an individual productivity tool. So an individual could kind of summarize large documents. They could save themselves some time per week. They could do some research projects, and was seen initially as an individual and how much more productive an individual could be. That changed over time when we started bringing out agents and areas where we could share prompts with the individuals, because now we're starting to look at whole departments could automate, or how teams can use an agent to do something that they find repetitive. Now the agent can actually be submitted to IT, and they can approve it. They can check the content that's being made available. They can approve it and publish it. So look out for that. That's coming in May. And I think it's quite important because sometimes the most powerful AI agents aren't built by corporate or IT. They're built by individuals or people in the organization that are tired of doing something manually. They understand the process, and they figured out how to build agents, and they're now building something that automates a part of their life or part of their team's life, and now they're able to publish it. What's useful is that agent will be tagged as built by your organization, so anyone can find and install them. And it also means that RT will stay in control of those apps and retire them when they're not being used and monitor them. Very small thing, but something that might help with the trust side of things. If you look in the middle bottom of that, you can now see that you can brand the footer of your Copilot app. Now, why that's important? Because one of the big reasons why you would look at rolling out Copilot in your organization is to remove shadow AI and remove consumer tools being used by individuals in your organization and the potential data leak that comes with it. We have had cases where people aren't sure if they're using the consumer version of Copilot or the corporate one. This is an easy way to solve that just by putting on your branded footer at the bottom of the app. Something else that Microsoft has released, it's the Microsoft Adoption Mentor Program. So Microsoft has become aware that individuals become champions of their technologies. And for those that are very interested in becoming that champion in the organization and going on it's a 6-week program. There's quite a lot of studying involved in it, so it's a commitment that you need to make for this. But if you want to go on a structured adoption framework to become a Microsoft champion, there is a pathway that they've got for that now, and they're running a course over May and June. So if you're interested in that, we will send out some links for that. We do also have our own product that we offer. It's called the Copilot Launchpad product, and I'll be talking about that a bit later on today. So moving on to Copilot. Just to show you how difficult it is to keep up with the news, this slide deck was prepared on Monday, and I wanted to talk around the new releases in GPT because they've released 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4, which means you get to choose the model that you use. The quick response, if you're just kind of searching an answer for something, would be really quick to respond to you, and will use less tokens if you're using the token version and not the paid for version of the app. Since Monday, GPT have released 5.5, so the pace of updates across all of the LLMs is becoming incredibly fast. But what is important here is that this is the GPT update, which is from ChatGPT, the OpenAI AI application. And Microsoft has been heavily leaning on what OpenAI releases to build into its ecosystem. And they've deliberately not been the innovator when it comes to large language models. In fact, it's quite common. I use Claude, I use Gemini, I use Perplexity, I use a lot of them. And something that always frustrates me with Microsoft is that it's not the front runner. There's always other tools that are able to do things faster than Microsoft. But what Microsoft really wins in is that work IQ, where it has kind of organizational context. So it understands what's coming in through your email, what's happening in your meetings, what's happening in your documents. So it becomes very useful over time. So while it's not necessarily forefront and the innovators right up front, over time, it starts releasing these technologies into its ecosystem. One of those is notebooks. Now, inside Copilot, there's a tool called Notebooks, and not a lot of people use it and aren't quite sure how to use it. Now, Microsoft have done some changes to this because Google released Notebook LM, very, very popular tool, and really, the reason you would use a notebook as opposed to your standard chat has got to do with large language models versus small language models. Now, if you think about Copilot being able to access everything published on the internet, all books, all literature available, it can sometimes get lost in that, and that's where we get things like hallucination. Now, in small language models, we're actually feeding the base grounded data that the responses come from. So to give you an idea, within a notebook, I could feed it some, like let's say, service description documents, operation manuals, legal contracts, things that were very specific to a particular project that I was working on. And I wanted to use that as the reason, as to what the large language model would look at to provide the answers that I'm looking for. And this is when you would use a notebook as opposed to just a regular chat. Now, what Copilot Notebook has done is some advancements. They've done some changes to it to compete with Notebook LM. I'm not quite sure if it's ready at the same pace as Notebook LM, but it's getting there quite quickly. And some of the things that you're able to do, which is pulled straight from Notebook LM, and what made it so popular was you can do things like audio overviews. You can do things like mind maps, study guides, and create documents from your small language models. So from that collection of artifacts that you wanted to interrogate, and not from just generally everything on the internet. So I use the audio overview, for example, to create podcasts of learning materials. So I'm often traveling and I need to listen to something in the car, and what I'll do is I'll put everything into a notebook that I want to understand, and then I'll set the audio overview up to create an audio file, and then I'll listen to that while I'm driving, and that way I get to kind of learn about things that I want to learn about while I'm driving. So yeah, super productive way of doing things there. They've gotten really good at presentation layouts in Notebook. They're definitely playing the long game here. So they're catching up to competitors in that space with Notebook LM. The Copilot version of Notebook is definitely catching up in that area. Some rebranding. So Knowledge Agent, which you would use in SharePoint to do a similar kind of thing with small language models, where you would use your SharePoint to tell the agent what the data is. They've now called that AI in SharePoint as opposed to Knowledge Agent. So just a naming change we'll probably see more of. There's some new capabilities that are coming out in AI and SharePoint. So automatic metadata application, adaptive libraries, and Copilot ready information. So making your data more ready for Copilot usage. What we're starting to see is Excel has really improved. I've started using it a lot more. I don't know if you were like me. If you started using Copilot in Excel a year and a half back, it was okay. It wasn't great. It often told you how to do things. It didn't actually do it. We're seeing major changes in that because you can now use Excel in agent mode in Excel. So I've been doing some pretty difficult aggregations of data using chat and actually telling it to import data and match it to a cell, and some complex multitask flows that I've been doing in Excel. It's been working quite well. So it's something that we're planning on doing in the coming months. Is we'll do a webinar specifically on Excel usage and how to use Copilot effectively within Excel, because we know there's a lot of people that would use that. For the students, the cheating students in the back of the room, Copilot has got your back. You now have citations. So they're creating automatic citations in all their work. So it'll give you improved transparency as to where they're getting the data from and reliable referencing. We're starting to see better branded outputs in PowerPoint. Still not perfect, but if you've got a template PowerPoint deck and you want to insert a slide, you can maintain the branding of that slide when you import. So PowerPoint has never been at the forefront for generative AI. There's been tools like Gamma, Gemini have been leaders in that space. But Microsoft is improving it and realizes that PowerPoint is what most organizations are using, and they're definitely getting stronger at it. Something else that we're starting to see now is the multi-model capability. So you're now able to choose between Claude, GPT, or a combination of those. So when you start doing research now, you're going to start seeing that you'll get one version coming out using GPT as the model, and then Claude monitoring that and checking its accuracy, and then improving it if it has to. So this multi-model approach is something that Microsoft's doing that I think is quite genius, and they're setting themselves up to be a platform provider for the large language models and not getting involved in the battle for who's winning. So while you're seeing Google coming out with new releases all the time, you're seeing OpenAI trying to compete with Anthropic. Microsoft are just making their platform available for both Claude and for OpenAI, and they're letting the users choose the model based on that. And I think that's quite smart by them. Some promotions that are running with Copilot till the end of June that may be useful for you. There's the standard SMB focus 15% off. That's if you're that's available on SMB and mid-size, 15% off. It's still available till the end of June. If you're not quite sure if you're ready for Copilot, I would suggest buying one license before then, because you can always add to that subscription over a period of time. So if you're thinking about getting Copilot, look at buying one license in the meantime before end of June, and then you'll have that price locked in for the year. If you're on business standard, I wouldn't buy Copilot on its own. I would look at upgrading your business standard model to business standard with Copilot. It's a specialized SKU that comes like that, and that's 35% off. So don't buy business standard and buy Copilot separately. If you have business standard, buy the bundled version. 35% off. It's quite a compelling offer. It works out to about £7 for the Copilot license per month, as opposed to the standard £22. So a significantly cheaper way of buying it. You can upgrade standard and premium licenses midterm, so you don't need to wait for renewal to do an upgrade. You just can't downgrade in term. You're also able to buy Copilot on a month-to-month basis now. It does come at a premium, but it is available. And for the really large customers, you are able to buy Copilot on large deals. So if you are looking to buy 300 to 1,000 plus users of licenses at one go, talk to us. There's some really compelling offers to look at there as well. These promotions are till the end of June, and the reason for that is Microsoft's financial year is from July, so we'll probably see a whole bunch of new discounts after that. So the big news that came out in the past month is Microsoft Coworker. This has really been creating a storm. And whereas Copilot was the traditional word that Microsoft used for its model of using an assistant, the upgraded Clippy, the paperclip, it was seen as something that you would use for prompts or single response. So I would ask a question and it would respond, or I would ask a summary and it would respond. It does a fixed response to what you ask. It iterates. You ask it to iterate, it iterates once. Whereas coworkers, on the other hand, can receive a complex goal, and it can orchestrate and plan multi-step workflows. So it can run autonomously, and it can do that for hours and across applications. So it can book a meeting in your calendar. It can create a Word document. It can PDF it. It can email someone. It can set off a multitask workflow, and that's what Cowork can do. This comes as a result of Microsoft's partnership with Anthropic. Now, Anthropic is seen as one of the most highest growth companies in the world right now. To give you an idea, they were valued at $2 billion in Q1 of 2025. This deck has already been outdated because in the last week, they received a $1 trillion bid. So they've gone from $2 billion to $1 trillion in a year and a half. So that is an exceptional growth. And what was really interesting is in January 2026, so just 4 months ago, they launched Claude Cowork, and it took off. It was hugely popular. And within 6 weeks, Microsoft had announced Copilot Codewalk. So within 6 weeks of the release of Claude Cowork, Microsoft had bought into Anthropic and had stopped working with, or solely working with, its OpenAI partnership. So really big move. We're seeing lots of releases from Claude, and why that's quite exciting is they're competing on multiple fronts. And if it's anything like what we've seen with ChatGPT, that eventually what it gets released in ChatGPT comes into Cowork, we now can get excited that we'll start to see all the things coming out of Claude coming into Microsoft as well. So this is the kind of thing you're going to see more, and I mentioned it in Researcher, where you're going to see both models answering a question. So you'll do research with GPT, and Claude will monitor GPT's research and improve it. So Yeah, that's going to be quite exciting. I'm looking forward to working with that. The release of Claude Cowork is on a stage release. It's been available to the frontier firms earlier. We have had some issues with GDPR in Europe, which means that we've had a slightly delayed release in Europe. But yeah, some exciting changes. I think Claude is really going to change how we work with large learning models. So something to really get excited about is with Claude Copilot being integrated into Microsoft and Copilot Cowork being used, we're getting that same benefit of being grounded in work IQ. That is Microsoft's real differentiator. The fact that it knows who you work with, the context of work that you do, the emails that get through, the files that come through to you. This is something that is unique to Microsoft. It's not available in the other large learning models. So something quite exciting there. With Anthropic, they've also released Claude Design that came out this month. So there are challenging design applications like Figma. They released Opus 4.7. Google has seen Anthropic as a major change to it. So they've built an elite team to rival Anthropic's coding. And we've even seen Amazon investing $25 billion into Anthropic. Claude also brought out Claude Routines. So if you've been working with APIs, you might have heard of N8N, which took the world to storm by automating how we build APIs. Well, now we've got Claude Routines that are doing it. So Claude is literally eating the lunch of other software as a service applications. So it actually caused a big dip in a lot of the software prices when they came out with Cowork in January. And what's really interesting with that, they launched Cowork in January. They were Trump announced that they were a supply chain risk in early March, and suddenly they're back in favor with the U.S. administration now because they're seeing that the technology they're bringing out is truly groundbreaking. The other big one that came out was Mythos. So Claude brought out Mythos and decided that the language was too advanced and had to restrict it. And the main reason they restricted it was able to find an exceptional amount of vulnerabilities across huge amounts of applications. So they realized that by releasing it, it could be used by nefarious actors to exploit other software applications. So pulled it and did a stage release with only a few vendors to try and prepare for the release of this. So while we get really excited about this technology, we also need to be really concerned about how fast it's moving and how it can be used by nefarious actors. I do a lot of design for work that I do, so I'm quite excited about Claude Design and really excited about this being integrated into Microsoft over the coming months. So that's something we can look forward to. So when you start seeing, as you might do if you're on LinkedIn, you'll see that Google's brought out something, Claude's brought out something, GPT's brought out something. It does eventually come into the Microsoft ecosystem, and it does that in a secure way. So we can be excited that we are going to see all of these applications and the innovations coming into Microsoft. And here's just a comparison slide of Claude Cowork versus Copilot Cowork, and where it's valuable, especially in industry, in for business usage. Things like the purview for data loss preventions, for audit logging as to who's doing what, as to whether it's a human doing an automation on an Excel spreadsheet versus the bot. Whether the data is stored in the EU or not is quite key as well. Because what we're starting to see with a lot of the learning models, in fact, Microsoft even did this, the data stays in Europe, but the processing, they've now made that a US thing where they've said that they'll switch the processing to US. So if your business is very transparent in where you generate your data and where your data is held, be aware that Microsoft has made a change where they've said that they're going to do processing in America, and it's a toggle switch that they just put into every environment, and you actually have to toggle it off. You have to opt out of that processing. So if your organization is very dependent on data residency, just be aware of that and reach out to one of us on the team about that. So what is important for AI leaders in organization? It's not so much the learning models that are coming out and the pace of change that's happening. It's the governance surface. So you need to have a trust layer, that control panel, the idea that agents can be submitted to IT for approval, that we've got a governance layer on top of that, that we're controlling how our data is being used in these models. That is your priority right now. We've got Claude Cowork's coming up with role-based access control that was supposed to come out in April. We're going to have that out the box in Microsoft. So that's why we've been pushing the Microsoft thing. And we have heard in the market, Microsoft doesn't have the latest technology. This is why. It's because they play the long game, they play that security, they play that trust game. So if you want to know what to use when, Copilot everyday tasks. I mentioned Notebook, which kind of sits in the middle. That's when you want to do work with a project where you're actually working with a notebook with projects where you're giving it the information and you want the answers based on that information. You would use agents when you're doing specialized tasks and repetitive tasks, and you would use this at a department layer, potentially a team layer, or potentially a whole division layer. This is when you would start using agents. Cowork is when we're going to start looking at heavy lifting and automation. That's when we're going to start automating whole workflows. We'll be giving work to Cowork in the morning and coming back in the afternoon and seeing its output. And you can expect that kind of delay. It won't be as fast as the Copilot experience is now. There's a lot of promotions running at the moment for Purview, which is Microsoft's data level governance application. If you aren't aware of Purview, I would suggest you get involved, get up to speed with it. It's quite important for the data protection within the Microsoft ecosystem. So some really good promotions running until end of June. If you talk to your account manager, they'll be able to assist you there. The other big news that came out was Microsoft E7. So it's been the big change since E5 was out a few years ago. This is now the biggest bundle suite that you can get. And basically, it takes the E5 SKU with Entra. It adds on Copilot. So it's making the assumption that all users are going to use Copilot, and then bundling Microsoft Agent 365, which is the control plane for agents and how you manage all of your agents in the organization. This is coming together as a bundle for $99. And really interesting that this came out, because in my experience, and I've worked with a few companies now in rolling out Copilot in the organization, we don't see 100% adoption of Copilot. There's always the early innovators that probably started with Shadow AI. They probably came with consumer tools initially, and then the benefits of working with Copilot and WorkIQ became apparent. And then once the Copilot license, those users became champions. And then departments started rolling out. And even with continuous training, we never see 100% rollout with Copilot. So very interesting that they've come out with a SKU and deploying it to everyone. There are cost benefits of the bundles, and we can expect in July with Microsoft's new financial year, there'll be new incentives to make this even more compelling. But I'm not quite sure if we're going to see 100% rollout of users. So interesting. Watch the space. Some other promotions that link to this. There are some promotions at E5 at the moment. So if you're running E3 and you maybe bought some of the individual security products separately, you may want to talk to a licensing specialist about bundling up to E5. With the current promotions and the bundling options available to you, E5 may now become quite a compelling offer to you. There's the 15% off and the 10% off offer on the E7 on its launch promotion, but expect some new offers coming in the future. Another big thing coming on early next week is extended service term. We call it EST. Now, what this means is if you have an annual renewal with Microsoft, you're not able to reduce your licenses in year. You're only allowed to change it during a 7-day window at your renewal time. Now, you can set that to auto-renew, and most people do set it to auto-renew because they're not going to move off Microsoft anytime soon. But some people turn off auto-renew, and that may be because they want to use it as an opportunity to change partners. There may be they want to think about how their licensing is done. But for whatever reason, auto-renew was often turned off as a tactical move at the end of the contract. And what Microsoft did was they didn't discontinue the license that it's set to not be auto-renew. They gave it a 30-day grace period. Now Microsoft is going to tax that 30-day grace. We call it a procrastination tax. They're basically going to let that roll over. So if you don't auto-renew, they'll let it roll over on a month-to-month basis, but you'll pay the monthly license price of that. And in some cases, the monthly version of that license could be as high as 23% more than the annual version that you've been on. And they also charge a 3% tax on that month-to-month. So just be very aware of that if you do use that turn off auto-renew feature. And for customers of ours, you'll start hearing this quite often when our account manager is talking to you about renewal. If you do have auto-renew turned off, they're going to be talking to you about EST. So just be aware of that. That's coming in from next week. We're also seeing an increase in Microsoft price licenses coming from 1st of July. What's probably most noticeable is to see what hasn't been increased, and that's Business Premium. So if you are on Business Standard, the price difference between Business Standard and Business Premium has maybe become more of a decision-based. There's not as big a gap to make that jump. So that's something that you could potentially look at. There are some tricks that you can do on this. So if you've got a renewal coming after the 1st of July, one of the tricks that you can do is you can buy a single license now before July, just one license, and then when it comes to your renewal, use that one license over 12 months to add to, as opposed to add to your other one. And that can often save you around 4 or 5% on your Microsoft licensing over a year. So it's a little trick. It only saves you money for the first year. But if you've got enough users, this could be quite a compelling saving. So speak to your account manager, ask to speak to a Microsoft licensing specialist about this and see how it would apply to you. But there could be some quite big savings there. Other ways of looking at saving is we've got an offering called Streamline 365. And what Streamline 365 is, we call it a licensing optimization service. It's a completely free service. We offer it to all of our customers, whether you have your Microsoft licensing with us or not. And we use it to get insights on your Microsoft environments. It's a FinOps powered service. So it means, probably the reason that would have had the most benefit to you is that we initially run a health check and we look at things like waste. So we look at how you use your licensing and where the waste could be involved. We look at adoption and engagement. We also look at things like security score and where we can improve your security score. And we look at right sizing, look at idle detection, and this inevitably will save you money on the first engagement. We found with Microsoft licensing, we average around 3 to 6, 7% saving when it comes to Microsoft licensing, up to 30, 40% on the Azure side. But it can also save quite a lot of money on underused licensing and looking at the other parts of that. So if you'd like to do a health check, we do a tenant connection with you. What that means is we send you a hyperlink where a global admin would click on the link, sign into the Microsoft account, and then give us read-only access into your estate. After a few days, we're able to provide a results dashboard. We come back to you with an executive-ready health check, and that's a lot of customers find that quite useful, especially with Microsoft licensing pricing going up. It's a really good way of getting some value. And this is a completely free service, by the way. There's no cost to doing this, just a request for it. So the next few slides are just some examples of what you can see from the dashboard and where the cost savings are. Gives you an idea of kind of an overview. It talks around cost optimization examples. So in this particular case, there's between a 2 and 19% savings. It's estimating some savings with zombie accounts, oversubscribed accounts. It also shows you Copilot. So it shows you things like how many licenses have been assigned and also who your likely candidates are for Copilot licensing. So if you want to deploy licensing to say 10, 20% of your staff, this will help you identify who your more likely candidates are for Copilot. So it could be quite useful as well. Also really good for tagging. So you can already do tagging in Azure, but this tool allows you to tag at your department level. So let's say, for example, you might have accounting in your company that wants some access into what you're spending on your Microsoft licensing, but you don't really want to give them access to your Microsoft tenants. you can give them access to this tool that we provide, and you can provide tagging at a project level, at a department level. So you can provide Azure costings and licensing costing to a particular project that you're working on. And you can use it for smart tagging, which is quite powerful from a finance perspective. It also pulls your Microsoft Secure Score, and gives you recommendations on how you can improve it. And again, this is completely free. There's no cost to this as well, but help build recommendations as to what you should be doing across zero touch, looking across identity, data, device, and apps. I'm not going to talk around AVD. I am going to talk around Launchpad. So Launchpad is our 30-day Copilot adoption program. And what we're seeing with consumer AI usage is Microsoft's estimating that around 71% of UK employees are using some form of unapproved consumer AI tool at work. Now, when they're using these tools, they're probably using your corporate data in those tools. So who knows where that data is going? If you aren't going to buy the licensed version of Microsoft, consider just deploying the free version of Copilot, because then at least you're in control of your data. But we have to look at the reasons why individuals are using Shadow AI, because they're actually trying to do their job better, right? Their intentions are good. They've seen a tool that helps them summarize large documents, that can help them research, that can help them create things that were far easier to do than they're able to do traditionally. And IT hasn't provided them the right tools. And that's why they go into Shadow AI. So we have to take kind of their reasoning for wanting to improve at their work and then provide them the right tools. Now, often leadership is caught out by this because, individuals in the company have started adopting these AI tools before leadership has a full strategy on how they're going to roll out generative AI in the company. So we find customers have one of these four dilemmas. They're not sure where to start with an AI strategy. Their leadership aren't involved, and they're obviously going to sign off any cost if we want to deploy licensing or deploy any security services. They aren't quite sure about what security needs to be in place for Copilot as opposed to their traditional security lens. And more importantly, on the security side is, how can we control how data is shared? How do we make sure that users don't suddenly get access to HR files and be able to see people's payslips? And also unsure how to measure values. So because of this particular problem, and to get customers started, we launched our Launchpad service. Essentially, it's a 30-day engagement. So within 30 days, we'll give you a strategy. It comes into 4 one-week programs, and each engagement does different things. So on engagement 1, we sit with leadership. We help you with strategy. We help build a vision. We form an AI council. We decide who are your 10 likely best champions to help push that message and train other users in the company. We establish the technical readiness of the organization to adopt AI. And then we move on to engagement 2. And this is when we start doing the training. So we work with the 10 champions. We provide the 10 Microsoft Copilot licenses for a year included in the service. So you don't have to buy that separately. We do the champion training. Then we come back for engagement 3. This is when we start looking with those champions. We start measuring about how they could use this in application in your particular environment. So if you're in retail, we'll apply how we're going to use generative AI to improve them at a department level and your business specific to your industry and your own requirements. And that'll help us build ROIs. We'll be able to show you how usage is being done in that. And this is quite key because this takes generic training to something that's actually applicable to your organization to show how you can benefit from generative AI. The final engagement is when we come back to the leadership table. We explain what we feel is best practice when it comes to rolling out. We don't suggest rolling out licenses to 100% of your users. We prefer a staged approach. We feel that works a lot better. We provide you with a technical roadmap. So what you should be doing from a security gap perspective, we'll advise where the gaps are and what you should be prioritizing to improve. And then generally engaging with you onto what the next year looks like for your Copilot rollout. It comes at a fixed cost engagement. It's $5,000, including licenses, and the licensing components on its own is worth about 1.718 of that 5. So it's designed to be a low-cost investment to get you started on that Copilot AI journey. So if this is something of interest to you, we will share a link with you which will give you an option to book directly with a consultant, find a time that's suitable for you, and get a direct 30-minute session. So you'll talk to somebody who's an expert in this and who's been doing this these Launchpad products directly. That's coming to the end. Thank you very much for joining. We do host webinars every month. This particular one is done every month with all the news that's happened in the past month. I hope you find it worthwhile. It's something I'm really excited about. So if I spoke too fast, I apologize. But if you want to reach out and have a chat about anything discussed today, very open to it. I'll leave my QR code for my LinkedIn if you want to follow me for my own opinion-based newsletter on what's happening in the market. You're welcome to join that. But otherwise, I'll check if there's any chats or any comments or questions. Yes. Okay. So what I'll do is don't have it on hand, but I'll send a link to that article in the email that goes out to everyone afterwards. So the question was, can you show us what the data residency toggle is? Yes, it's in the admin center. I'll share that with you because it's quite a key one that you need to opt out. Basically, what they're saying is that in periods of high consumption with CPU usage in Europe, they reserve the right to be able to use processing in America. Any other questions? I'll copy the link for the booking. So if anyone wants to book to speak to a one-on-one, I'll paste it in the chat now. Great, and I'll send Nick. I'll send information on the adoption program as well. I'll share that with you. I'll stay online for the next few minutes to see if there's any other questions. But otherwise, thanks very much for joining. Next month we'll be doing this again with everything that's happened in the past month. Thanks very much. Thanks for giving up your morning.